This is my story of belonging. I remember my very first feelings of moving to San Luis Obispo from the East Coast 13 years ago. I was completely blown away by how beautiful this place was. The landscape, the hills, the ocean. I was that person making those irritating phone calls, calling them, asking about what their weather was like, because it was 72 and sunny here. I know you have done this. And I remember just driving through the towns and being so blown away how beautiful it was, and amazed that everybody seemed to know each other. I also remember thinking, where are the 30-somethings? Where were the radical intellectuals and the artists? Where were all the people of color? Where were the different? As a 32-year-old Indian Muslim woman, I didn't see myself here. I remember urging my former husband, shortly after I got here, I became pregnant. I said, we've got to move. I don't feel safe here. Because when you don't see yourself in a place, you're quite certain that everybody sees how much you don't fit in. We humans, we share such a universal desire to belong to community. We want to be seen and to show up as we are. Show up as we are. So my feelings of belonging really began when I met Dave Garth and the volunteers and the staff at the Slow Chamber in the fall of 2007. Dave at that time had been the CEO for, I think, about 35 years at that time. That's not an exaggeration. And over a long lunch, we connected. It was cold, but we connected. And he quickly hired me as Director of Governmental Affairs, even though I didn't know anything. But it didn't matter, because he knows how to see people. And he gave me the backstory on the people and the issues and the places. It was a 3+ year crash course in political science and history. And I didn't just learn about the who, what, where. I got the provenance. It helped me learn the language of this place. So I could really cite authoritatively, well, that is where Riley's was, or chocolate soup, or the cigar factory. And there were team members like Lindsay Miller who showed me every day how to do every task. And volunteers like Jeff Buckingham and John Ewan and Bill Toma, who would take the time to give me the backstory, and Pierre Rademacher. And they would take all my questions. And they all understood that community begins with connection. And that begins by extending a hand and help. And they were showing me how to build trust, which is the basis of doing anything big. Those first few years at the Chamber were an intense indoctrination. I was so busy that I didn't see the ways that I was beginning to belong. But I remember a turning point. It was when we went on our first economic vision trip 10 years ago today to Boulder, Colorado. Many of you in the audience went on that trip. And little did I know it at that time, but on that trip would be the people that would become my closest friends and my future husband. In about 6 weeks, this is where I'm going to choke up. After I returned from that trip, my only sister passed. And during that same month, my husband and I at the time separated, and overnight I became a single mom. And all at once, I felt very alone. And it was a difficult chapter. But the people in this room, you reached out. You left baskets for me at my doorstep to make sure that I was cared for. You sent me cards, and you asked me how I was doing. And you supported me in ways big and small. And all of those initial acquaintances on that trip to Colorado, well, you became the deep friendships that have sustained me. So flash forward to 2011, and my mentor tells me he's retiring, and that's terrifying. And he and others encouraged me to apply for the CEO job. It was a job in my eyes that was way too big for me, but I went for it. And it was an important lesson in stretching, because particularly as a woman, when you may not feel ready for something because you haven't ticked every box to get there, that might be a common feeling, but so many people encouraged me to go for it. And then I was terrified when I got it. Eric and I were on a trip to Spain on a vacation immediately prior to the start of this new role, and I begged him that we should stay in Spain. Because I was pretty sure that everybody would see what a crazy mistake they had made. And maybe you've had this feeling before. It's really well documented, and it's called the imposter syndrome. It's that awful feeling when you're certain that everybody is going to figure out that you have no idea what you're doing and that you are grossly unqualified to lead what you've been entrusted to do. And it's a feeling we all face. But for whatever reason, we question if we belong at the table, if we are good enough, if we know what we need to know. What I learned is that nobody was going to let me fail. There are so many people in this room and outside of these doors that have walked by my side, showed me the way, translated what I didn't understand. My chairs, most of whom are here today, my team members, my mentors in the community, and my husband. And I had so much to learn. I've been schooled in planning principles and reading very obtuse government documents, I'm looking at you, or organizational management principles and financial management and campaign basics and building coalitions and all kinds of strategies. But the most impactful learning I had has been about people. Leadership, after all, is a relationship, and caring is at the heart of it. And so I learned from Lynn Bittinger the power of 3 phases: thank you, please, and I'm sorry. And from Sandy Sigurdsson that you need to consciously invite women to the table. Otherwise, we just reinforce what we've had and not where we want to go. And from Lori Silva that we have to actively listen to those who aren't demanding to be heard because they have so much to share. And from Monica Grant for challenging the status quo to the way we see what we see so that we can create the space for those who aren't yet in it. And from Maggie Cox about the powerful gesture of a genuine thank you card. And from Kelly Donahue, the power that we have as leaders to tap the shoulder of somebody else as we see as a leader, but they may not yet. And to Chris Yetter, who says, don't water your strong traits down, but instead bring your full self in every way, because you are enough. And from so many others. This is what it looks like to build relationships and to create a sense of belonging. They are simple words, but it is such a huge concept. So the Chamber has been my home on every level. It is where I focus my energy to shape this place that has accepted me, to learn from remarkable people, to be inspired from those so different from me, to make sense of the world when it has felt senseless at times, to draw strength through personal challenges, and to find community each day and certainly each month in this room. And over this last 7 years, we have done incredible things together, and there is much more work for us to do. We must challenge our beliefs and welcome in underrepresented voices and consider new leadership pathways and models and not accept doors that have been inaccessible for others. We have to work to connect rather than divide with our difference and show more of ourselves and be compassionate and build trust and push boundaries and listen and bring truth to power and participate in the ways we want to create this place because we can and we will. And so I want to make a few parting remarks about this last 6 months because it is the people that are the secret sauce. And this planned departure over the last 6 months have been a remarkable gift to me. To be clear, I am not retiring. Eric would kill me. I'm taking a sabbatical, and then I'm going to be looking for work next year. But my goal, like I know so many of yours, is to continue to lead lives where our values and our actions align. And for me, that means spending more time and putting my daughter and my mother and my friends at the top of my list. So the conversations that I've had have been the greatest gift. So many people, you have shared your personal experiences with me. I have heard tales of regret from mothers and fathers and adult children. And those moments have been accompanied with tears, which underscore how difficult or really out of reach my choice is. I have been regularly met with disbelief and astonishment, questions that sound like, why are you really leaving? What are you really gonna do? You aren't really leaving without knowing what's next. I really am. But more often than not, I've heard incredible encouragement. I've been regaled with cherished memories and words of advice and smiling faces. And these have propelled me to take this personal leap for which I am terrified of. But I'm jumping towards something that I want. And I've even heard that my choice is an inspiration, something that gives others permission to consider it. So I think the idea of leaving a job that you love, that's going well for the unknown, it's not something that we regularly talk about. It's not visible, it's not a story we tell, but I hope that changes. As a woman that is passionate about supporting other women and girls to find their place and their voice, I think we need to tell this story, because mine is just another working mother story retold. And in my story, as I leave my chamber home, I know I belong here, and I'm going to be the one with all of you clapping loudly in the audience. Thank you so much.